Hi guys, welcome to this video. This is Prashant from Wordpandit, and in this video we study 5 verbal ability and reading comprehension mistakes that you need to avoid. Cat has entered that zone, right? It's a few months away. This is when you have to be really careful with your preparation, and you need to make sure you avoid these 5 common mistakes, right? Which are these 5 mistakes which should be your primary concern here? The first thing that a lot of students do is they ignore reading at this stage. You begin to feel psychologically that reading is not making a difference and you stop reading. So instead of reading, what do you shift to? You just shift to pure practice, right? So that's all you do. You decide that solving RCs, solving questions is the way to go about it, right? And in the process you ignore reading altogether. This is one thing that you should not do at all, right? You've got to read diversely. That means you've got to read different topics. You've got to read exhaustively. That means topics that you explore, you should explore them in an in-depth manner. And most importantly, you need to have patience. Remember, we are talking about changing your reading skills. We are talking about changing your comprehension levels. So if you were at this level and if you want to be at this level, this change is not going to take place overnight. You're not going to progress in a linear manner, right? You're going to progress very slow, right? And then there is going to be a breakout point when you finally feel very comfortable with most of the topics, and that is when rapid learning takes place. At this stage, if you are struggling with reading or if you are struggling with reading comprehensions, please do not make the mistake of only solving RCs, only solving questions. Make sure you read and you are very regular with it, right? It is for this purpose our course has a daily reads section, right? Wherein we push you on an everyday basis. We give you reading suggestions. We give you 4 articles to read on a daily basis and push you that these are the articles that you should be reading, right? Can you carry out this selection on your own? You can, absolutely, right? Our purpose is there just to guide you, to just give you that extra nudge, right? That reminder that you need to read on an everyday basis. Remember, do not forget this, right? Make sure you're regular with reading and you're not skipping this. One little insight with respect to reading, right? Try to use your breaks, right, for reading. So when you've studied quant for a few hours, when you've done a few LRDI sets and you need a break, right, you have a 15-minute break, dedicate that break to reading. This way reading does not become a task, right? It does not become a core, right? Otherwise what happens is that it kind of weighs you down. You have this constant mental pressure that you have to spend 1 hour on reading, right? It kind of weighs you down and that plays on you and that reduces your efficiency. So in order to avoid that, make sure you use your breaks whenever you have time in between. So you use it as that exercise, right? So this is the first thing that I want you guys to avoid, right? With respect to your preparation, right? The second thing that you've got to keep in mind is, I hear this very commonly, right? Wherein people have solved 10 RCs, they've solved 30 RCs, maybe they've solved 50 RCs, and students come up to me and say that they have not improved, right? They have not improved by solving 10, 20 or 30 RCs. Remember, there is the fundamental change that you require in your preparation that is not going to happen by simply solving 10, 20, 30, maybe even 50 RCs. You might not see any change whatsoever. You might get a feeling that you are not improving, and this in turn it sets up a vicious cycle, right? You feel you are not improving. Once you feel you are not improving, you stop solving RCs because fundamentally, since you are not improving, this is not helping you. Since you stopped solving RCs, there is no way you can improve in the topic, right? So you've completed this vicious circle, this vicious loop, and this is where you've got to avoid that negative thinking. Remember, reading and RCs, right? Reading regularly and solving RCs regularly, they work in conjunction and you've got to keep at it, right? It's till the day you take CAT, right? You keep working at it, you keep solving, you keep going through the process, and you stop questioning yourself. Don't question yourself. Don't ask yourself, what is the efficacy of this? How am I improving, right? So don't do that, right? Rather focus on the execution bit here, right? Because every time you read, every time you solve RCs, there is improvement which is happening on a subconscious level. Unfortunately, the diversity of topics is such, right? And CAT probes you on such a wide range of topics. You might have covered 20 topics, you might have covered 50 different topics while reading and while solving RCs. There can still be the 51st, right? And if you cover 50 areas, you make sure, even though you might not have read the 51st topic, you make sure you are in a better position, right, to understand that 51st topic, right? Your brain is calibrated better, right, to respond to new stimuli. Look at it from a very, very scientific point of view. Whenever you read, right, what happens in our brain, right? When you read something new or when you read something alien, right, your brain passes you the stimuli. It says that this is too tough, I've got to quit, I can't understand this. And once these thoughts begin to muddle your mind, you start looking at the timer, and once you start looking at the timer, there is additional pressure. A, you are not being able to understand the things. B, the timer is complicating matters for you further, and all of a sudden you are stuck in this negative zone from which you cannot break out, right? That is why it's very, very important to put yourself through enough practice to avoid this, to stop your brain from playing these games with you. How do you do that? You practice and practice a lot of RCs, right? The good thing about our course is that we offer sufficient practice, right? We give you 750 plus RCs, so there is no way you can essentially run out of RCs for practice, right? Guys, wherever you pick up RCs from, right, that's totally up to you. Make sure you practice them sufficiently, right? This is one thing that I want all of you to do, right? Third thing you've got to keep in mind, right? All of us, we spend a lot of time planning things, right? We plan, we collect material, we think what needs to be done, right? We analyze what we should not do, etc, etc, and we get stuck in this cycle, right? We plan for the next week, so every weekend we plan from Monday, right, that this is what I'm going to do from Monday to next Sunday, right? Then what happens is you start off on Monday, then something happens and this breaks, this cycle breaks. Then you think I'll start from Tuesday. Tuesday goes because you probably had to go and watch a movie, right? And then you're talking about Wednesday. There is some work pressure, something at your office, something at college, which makes sure that Wednesday and Thursday are destroyed. We've reached Friday again, and once we've reached Friday again, we go back to Monday again, right? And there is this cycle, right? There is almost this endless cycle. It's almost like we are endlessly running on a treadmill with no destination, right? We just don't reach our destination. Now, the best way to avoid this mistake of planning a lot and executing very little. Remember, this is not a VARC problem only. This is a problem you'll face with QA, LRDI, with your whole preparation. I put this on purpose. There was an objective here of putting this because this is a mistake that we do, right? It's a preparation mistake. How to avoid this? Do something very, very simple. Set yourself very, very simple goals, right? Very small goals, right? If you had planned 50 things to do Monday to Sunday, just throw 40 of those out, just pick up the 10 essential things, right? And make sure, if 10 is too big a number for you, pick up 5 essential things to begin with, right? To begin with, your goal should be to solve just 5 things, right? And that's where you've got to begin from, right? And once you begin to do these 5 things, right, once you've sorted out 5, right, you can always increase it to 6 the next week. Then you can increase it to 7 the following week. Take it up to 9, then take it up to 10, right? It's one step at a time, right? One thing at a time, one goal at a time, right? And honestly speaking, if you do this for a couple of weeks, if you move from 5 to 8 to 10, you will see that your micro steps, you can go up to 15, then you can go up to 25, right? Once you've built that momentum, it works. There is actually a research which says that if you're regular with an activity for 21 days, right, it becomes part of your system. It becomes a habit, right? And then you can't avoid doing it, right? You become very, very comfortable with it. So probably one target for you guys is to read for 21 days, right? Read regularly and solve for 21 days, probably 2 RCs a day, right? So this will probably become a mechanism for you, right? Something that you're going to repeat on an everyday basis, right? This is what you need to do, right? On a regular basis. So one simple learning, one key learning in this case for you guys here is what you've got to do is Start executing. Execute small, right? Pick up small things to do, but start doing stuff instead of just thinking about stuff, right? Next thing that you've got to keep in mind is one thing that we often forget in our preparation is that there are two paths in VARC, right? Part one is RC, right? Now the thing with RC is it is universal. It is present in every exam. CAT has the highest proportion of RC questions. Out of 34, 24 questions are RC questions. Non-CAT exams do not have the same proportion of questions. Some might have 20% RC questions, other might have 30%, 40%, right? So it varies, right? But RCs remain a part of every exam. So one thing about RC prep is reading and solving RCs, right, and going through all that content. That is sorted. The second part about your prep, it should be about verbal ability, right? Now verbal ability has three parts. Reasoning has topics such as critical reasoning, para completion, para summary, para jumbles, misfit sentences, verbal reasoning, etc. Right? So there are a set of 7 to 8 topics in reasoning. Then you've got grammar, which has got parts of speech and all grammar related errors. And then there is vocabulary preparation. Different exams have different vocabulary questions. NMAT has a lot of focus on synonym and antonym questions. Some exams have fill in the blank questions, other have closed tests, etc. etc. Right? So there are these different types of vocabulary questions. Now vocabulary in turn, it depends upon you've got to learn words, right, which in itself is a topic of discussion for one complete video in itself, right, because you have to adopt various approaches for it, right? So for vocabulary, you need to learn words. B, you need to practice problems, right? For grammar, you've got to go through the basics and learn all the rules, and you've got to practice problems. For reasoning, the number of rules are limited, but it involves practice, right? Now, what is it that you need to do over the next 3 months? It depends upon the exams that you're appearing for. So for example, if you're only appearing for CAT and ZAT, right, then RCs and reasoning should be your primary target areas. But if you're also appearing for NMAT, IFT, SNAP, and so on, right? These exams, then these areas also become important for you. Then grammar and vocabulary also come into the picture. Then the challenge becomes tougher, right? Because you've got to cover that many more areas, right? So ask yourself honestly, which are the exams that you're preparing for? Which are the exams that you are serious for? And this is a very, very important question. You have to be honest with yourself, right? Next step, go and research these exams. What exactly consists of, what is it that these exams probe? And once you figure that out, on the basis of that, come up with what is it that you need to cover for verbal ability. Do we have sufficient time to cover all these things? We do. Remember, some exams are going to be there in December, right? But the way these exams are structured, so IFT is a week after CAT. Realistically speaking, if you don't keep IFT in your perspective right now, you really can't cover much in that 1 week. SNAP a few weeks away, still something can be done. ZAT still further away. So you can do more for ZAT, right? But purely if you consider the overall structure and how these exams are scheduled, if you understand the structure of the schedule, then you will understand that you need to start planning from now and you need to start executing. If you ask me honestly, if your focus is not CAT only, right? If your focus is purely CAT and ZAT, then you don't need to worry about grammar and vocabulary. But if you are appearing for other exams, you need to work on all these areas from now onwards, right? You need to do that and you need to take care of these areas. This means putting in a little bit of extra work, but don't forget the last slide, right? If you're struggling with your preparation right now, don't start off with everything. You can start off with these things probably 2 or 3 weeks later, right? Vocabulary is something that you should start off with immediately. It's something that you will have to start off immediately with because it takes the maximum amount of time. Grammar, you need to cover in one go. You cover everything related to grammar in one go so that the learning is consolidated. Reasoning can wait. It can still wait at this time, right? So probably you can start it next month, right? But this is what grammar has to be done in one go. Vocabulary is something you need to begin with because it's going to take the maximum amount of time from among these 3 things, right? It's going to take time to improve your vocabulary skills, right? So this is another thing that I want you guys to keep in mind and not ignore for your preparation. Do not get too psyched for RCs, right? And leave out these other areas, right? The last thing that I want you guys to keep in mind is that VARC prep is not about a single strategy fitting all, right? It's not a one size fit all thing, right? Each one of us has a different learning needs. For some of us, our vocabulary might be very, very weak, which means you need to put in extra effort with your vocab. For others, grammar might be an issue. It might be an issue to the extent that it affects your understanding, right? And if it does that, you need to study grammar to improve your comprehension skills, right? So these are different needs that different individuals have. You need to be very, very honest with yourself. You need to analyze your mocks and section tests. You need to see where you are going wrong. And on the basis of that, you need to figure out your own strategy. One thing that I want all of you to do is stop following your peers blindly, right? Don't get into that trap, right? That if someone else is solving 5 RCs a day, I should start doing it. Look at your own needs. Look at where you are. You might actually need to solve 10 RCs a day. That might be your need. You might be at a really low starting point. Or for you, it might be about solving 3 RCs a day, but doing this with discipline, making sure that you analyze every RC, you take out the requisite learning, right? You've got to find out what is comfortable for you. What is it that you need to learn? You need to ask these questions and then come up with a strategy, right? Don't blindly follow the others, right? Make sure you come up with your own strategy in order to tackle this section, right? These are 5 things that I want you guys to keep in mind for your preparation, right? If you need more help from us, we've got a special VARC course, right, which focuses on all these aspects and make sure you get everything right for your VARC prep. It's a dedicated specialized course for verbal ability and RC, taking care of each of these things, right? So if you want that, please go ahead with that. If you want more advice from me, please refer to the blog section on cat.wordpandit.com. That section has a lot of blogs and it gives you a lot of information how you should prepare, especially it deals with the mental aspect of preparation, right? The mental side. What is the mental framework that you need to adopt, right? Thank you very much for watching this video. Hope you learned something valuable and hope your preparation gets the desired boost that it needs right now. Thank you very much and happy learning.